Y'all having it was a beautiful day, isn't it? It was cold yesterday.
At least it's not windy.
Actually felt like February for a little bit. I love cold weather, and I've missed cold weather this year, unfortunately. Y'all probably saying he's crazy.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
We want spring to get here, so the flowers will bloom. Summer, so we can go to the beach. So many of you are summer people rather than winter people.
It's spring and fall.
Yeah, I love fall. Probably my very favorite season in Oklahoma is late fall, early winter.
Gun season.
Yeah, and it's also like the nicest weather we have in Oklahoma usually.
Yeah. Yeah, our springs are getting shorter and shorter.
Our years are getting wetter and wetter apparently. Right now, man, it's been pretty wet so far. But that's, I reckon, good for wheat farmers and cattle ranchers and stuff.
But
Anybody like to paddle the Illinois River? So they've been over. I mean, Illinois has been over the banks for like a year now because it's so wet. Go down there. All right. So if you go to YouTube, I mean, typically you can just Google. I don't know what happens when you Google my name, Brad Pitt. Brad Bays, Oklahoma State. That's who you want right there. Okay, so you'll go there and then.
You can't see it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not signed in yet, so it doesn't know who I am. So this would be just like you. So if you just Google my name, Brad Bays, Oak State, then you'll go to like.
Fish, wildlife, and plants, climate adaptation.
Right, my professors, huh? You can go to all that stuff you want.
It's long one. Don't
See here.
I
can't remember what. Okay, let's do this. Let's go to YouTube. YouTube. Okay, I guess I gotta sign in.
They're all pretty tall. The girls are.
Yeah. I think that's gotta help.
You having a good day so far?
Actually, not bad.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
2, 6, 3, 6, 4.
Found out alternative agency is Western Red Cedar.
Yeah, Western Red Cedar. Eastern Red Cedar?
Is that what it
It's
is?
the Eastern Red Cedar, yeah. Or just say cedar.
Yeah.
It's blooming this week. It started blooming. Just heard the other day, and it bothers a lot of people.
As soon as it kicked up, like I just felt like I was getting the flu. I go to the DA and they're like, it's probably not the flu. I doubted them because I've never had allergies before. But if you disappear in the tropics, 37.
Welcome to Allergyville.
Yeah.
My allergies started in my mid-30s.
So I started taking Claritin and wow.
It helped?
Yeah.
There you go. That's good. That's why I do. I take the generic Walmart Claritin every single day.
Yeah.
And it's cheap.
It's one really hard effort.
You can cover.
Yeah, that'll save your life. Because, see, I used to get this. My problem was I used to teach you short classes. And my allergies hit me in November. And then they go away in February. Fine now, I'm not even taking anything.
It's all the cedar, isn't it?
No, it's not cedar. It's like elm or something. I'm not sure what it is, but it's late winter. But
Just getting blood flow.
so anyway, I used to teach these short classes during the winter, during the Christmas intercession. I'm talking to my geography major because she's listening to me. And I would. This is when I would lecture from 9 o'clock to 1:20.
15 minutes.
Imagine that.
Good job.
Isn't that fun? 9 o'clock to 1:20 during short course. And my allergies would get bad and I get sinus infection. I'd lose my voice. Couldn't teach. So that was the solution, was Claret. I finally went to the doctor and said, well, you got allergies. Well, I've never had allergies.
It can feel that. Okay, that's what I'm
All
thinking.
right. So if we go to
15 start.
This guy's YouTube video or YouTube site. Okay. I go to home.
I should do it on 7.
All right.
Turn around and come back. So that way
I want to learn German because of this woman. Anyway, this is, let's see. Okay, so that's that channel. Okay, so this is what you got to do. You go to, it's just, the channel is right here. I can maybe mail that to you.
Did you take that picture?
What? This? Yeah, I took that. You know where that is?
No.
Yes.
Montana?
Near Lawton, somewhere.
That's a good guess.
Is it Oklahoma?
It's Oklahoma.
Arbuckle Mountains.
Getting closer.
Wichita Mountains?
Ouachita Mountains, but where in the Ouachita Mountains? I'll tell you in a second. Hang on.
The Ouachita Wildlife Refuge.
Huh?
Ouachita Wildlife Refuge. Or the base down there, whatever
The
that.
Wichita Wildlife? National Wildlife
There's like
Refuge?
where they have the special elk hunt down there.
That's Wichita Mountains.
Yeah, but like,
It's not Wichita Mountains, though. It's on the opposite side of the state, or on the other side of the state.
the Kaimishi Mountain?
It is. It's actually right near Wilburton. That was actually taken near Heavener, in LaFleur County. So, if you ever been to Heavener, the Heavener Runestone, or?
What do you think about that?
What?
Runestone.
Oh, it's a bunch of crap. It's just silly. Those things are all over the place, like in Minnesota. Somebody had the idea and they stole it from Minnesota. Vikings coming over here, give me a break. You know, they were there. They made it to Newfoundland, but then Indians probably killed them all. You know, so
Maybe not.
well, they may have just intermarried with the locals and
Yeah.
disappeared. You know, so
I'm Osage, and it turns out they refer to the Osage native, and the native tongue is the Wazazi. The Wazazi means the people between the two rivers,
mhm.
and the two rivers are the Ohio and the Missouri. And if you expect that Vikings would have come from either Hudson Bay or the northeast of the United States and used the river system, when they came across warriors and traders like themselves, it's kind of, I don't know. I've got
We can't
DNA
prove it wrong. We can't
I've got
prove it wrong.
DNA in my system that says I'm of Scandinavian ancestry.
Lots of
I
it.
cannot find anywhere in my genealogy where that would be a thing.
Okay. All right. So if you guys go to, if you're able, are you able to find my webpage? This is obviously. Let's see here. Come on. Sorry. Well, we've wasted 12 minutes now, folks. Here we go. Morgan, you cooked anything good lately?
Yeah, I made pho last night, or yesterday over last
Vietnamese
night.
stuff?
Yeah, Vietnamese pho. It was good. It was cold. So I wanted soup. It's just a Vietnamese beef soup.
All right, so y'all, did you get the emails yesterday that I sent around, trying to clarify things, trying to get us straight on the exam? Okay, so you've got.
Knock it back a week.
Huh? Yeah, we knocked it back a week. Push it forward.
Man,
I don't do
Your Canvas course is right here. This is where you would go for your learning content, your readings, assignments, grades, all that stuff. Lectures. Then if you go to this, which this is a course that's created for you all for this. So it's Geography 3153, CRN 27878. And this is just what we call a generic community. It's kind of like a course, except it's not a course. It just looks like it. And the reason I created that is because I have going on this semester 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 courses. And this one's just bogus. 8 courses. Well, it looks like 8 courses. It's actually a couple of combined courses, so it's really not that many. But around 340 students altogether. And not that you all aren't my favorites, okay? But about 340 students. And so what I do here is I created this community, and that includes everybody in all my classes. So I can use this for a couple of really important things. I can do mass emails real quick if I need to. I usually use Outlook for that, though. But I can also, there's 2 other things. First one is allowing you to use everybody using the discussion to sign up, okay? Right? How many of you have done that? Okay, good. So, and the reason I have to have everybody on there is because we have a limit of about 25 people per session. So if all of you all decided you'd go to this one particular session, let's say at 11:30, and then I have 300 other students, okay, taking that one, then we'd have chaos. So we combine everybody, and then you can sort it out. So you're going to be taking your exam sometime on Friday of next week with people who are maybe also taking your exam in this class, but you'll also be taking it with probably 3 or 4 other classes, okay? Students who are taking exams, because I have exams all on the same day for my 16-week classes. Does that make sense? That's why I do that. And the other reason is it's with Canvas. With Canvas, we can do these. We've tried. Some of us have tried, right? The video conference thing that they do. It's called conferences. Right? So conferences. And the reason I did it. Another reason I did this is because I can create one population and open up the conference to everybody. Okay. So that means otherwise Canvas requires you to have a conference only with people in a certain class. So your office hours are only for a certain class. This doesn't make any sense. So I created a community, and we can, maybe all 340 of us can get on there at once, but so far it's only been about 2 or 3 at a time. So you can check that out. So if you go to, you see that Bayes exploration thing, that's just not a class. That's where you go to communicate with me through the discussion or with the conferencing. And you could also do chat. We'd also do a chat there with everybody at the same time. So that's that. And if you go to, let's see. Okay, this is what I'll do. Y'all in this class, and what I will do now is I will, I can't remember how it is. Okay, inbox. Inbox is your email, right, on Canvas? Y'all use that? I know the students really use that quickly. And unfortunately, I don't always check it, so sorry about that. But what I'll do here is I'll send you a message. Favorite courses, 3153, 27, 878. That's you guys, you gals. And we'll call this link to YouTube videos, okay? And I'll send each of you an individual message, and then we'll go find that link. Now, I have online classes. I have Geography 1113. It's got a lot of videos. This was Geography 3153. And if we look on here, some of these are just like old things that are kind of fun. But, some of these are in your, these are not, I don't have them all actually linked yet, so you have to go to just my regular old videos, and you'll see the ones that have shown up, like this one right here. Okay, you see all those? This is 3153. This is 3153. 3153. Let's look at this one. All right. So here are the out of I don't know how many, couple dozen people, something like that. They like Wayland in terms of asking about. Okay, so that's all you need to do is just go to that YouTube page. So here's the link. Huh?
Said, how are you gonna not play Waylon like that?
Oh, I got Waylon playing all the time in my head.
There's people in here that don't know who that is.
Anyway, that little scene is from, those are the mountains right next to Heavener. Is it Heavener? Yeah, Heavener's it's a neat little town. Get ready. There you go. Oh, no, not that easy. Students. Something like that. All students. Now you're gonna So how's it going, everybody? So now you've got access, kind of a quick and dirty way, access to the videos. And be careful to look at the titles on the videos. So, I mean, if you're, I'm doing two different classes at the same time. So you've got, it looks like for this class, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 already there. I think I linked one to you already, the first one. So anyway, let's continue on. And so today I want to use the document camera, and we'll get this recorded for you. Just some stuff about population and migration. Hopefully you can see this. Autofocus. Well, it's zoomed out. Zoomed in. Can you read that? Maybe. All right, so some information about population and migration, and I'll try to hit on some major points. Maybe it's kind of weird looking, isn't it? Blue, it's all blue. Oh well, we'll roll with that. So major themes of the unit, and when we talk about population and migration, we are in a period of unprecedented growth, right? What is the reason for the global population explosion? Guys,
Standard of
you're all being recorded, by the way. Everything you say, I'll be able to hear, and everybody else will be able to hear. So,
Thank you.
What's that?
Thank you.
Yeah. The major themes of the unit include the fact that the population of the Earth, human population, has been growing explosively. Why? If you're asked a question on a quiz, why? What accounts for this growth? Is it increased fertility? No. In fact, we've had decreasing fertility, right? So decreasing fertility leads to population explosion, right? Okay, wrong. So what are we getting at? What's the reason for the population explosion that has been going on for the last several centuries or maybe millennia?
Advancing
Pest
technology.
control, medicine,
Okay, what does that do though to affect the population?
keeps them healthy and living longer.
Longer lifespans, greater survival, okay? Longer lifespan, greater survival, not increasing birth rates. In fact, birth rates used to be sky high and they've come down in very recent years. So that will be a question on the exam probably, true, false. The population explosion is due to increasing fertility. No, that's stupid, okay? So it's declining mortality. Declining mortality is the reason, okay? Things are getting better, therefore we survive longer. We live longer lives. On average, if I would have been born 500 years ago, I would be dead by now, okay? I would be way too old, far beyond my years. to survive past 50, 500, 1,000 years ago, you were one of the really lucky ones. To survive childhood, in many parts of the world until just maybe 50 years ago was a real trick, all right? To get past 15 or 20, all right, then when you would actually survive a little bit. So major points, we have experienced an unprecedented amount of population growth, and as the neo-Malthusians would say, we don't have any idea of the impact on our natural resources and on our environment from this unprecedented population explosion. So, best thing to do is to try to make sure we don't have any more population growth. Okay, so that kind of gets into that Julian Simon, Paul Ehrlich debate, right? Remember that? So, which one was pro-natal? That is, pro-people? Simon or Ehrlich? Well, I think they're both pro-people, but it's just how you go about it. Simon was an optimist. Okay, he viewed that the larger the population, the larger the number of educated people. Okay, the greater solutions we will have in the future. Paul Ehrlich, on the other hand, was more of a pessimist. He said, we've got to put a cap on things. We've got to stop it. We've got to stop the bleeding. We've got to put some controls on population growth so that we don't ruin the planet, okay? So there's interpretations of population growth that go completely in different ways. All right? I'm not saying you got to choose one. I think they both have, legitimate arguments. They're kind of the extremes. But those were the ideas that and of course, as an economist, Simon and Ehrlich was what kind of egghead was he? What kind of academic was he? He was a biologist. So he is a biologist. He's still alive. So a biologist versus an economist. Okay, so natural science and a population-oriented natural scientist versus an economist. And guess what? Which one of those two fellows started off his career with the exact same point of view as the other? Who would you guess?
Ehrlich.
If you say Ehrlich, would you raise your hand? Would you say, so all the rest of you say Simon?
Not sure.
Well, at least you guessed. Thanks for guessing, Corbin. Everybody else was chicken, all right? Because they might be wrong.
Simon died before Ehrlich, if Ehrlich's still alive.
Ehrlich's still alive, I think.
And the Simon died from cancer?
Yeah, Simon died of cancer at a fairly young age.
I figure you grow into pessimism, maybe. He was maybe optimistic when he was younger.
It's easy to be negative.
Thanks for trying, Corbin. I appreciate
I'm
it.
totally wrong.
You're wrong, but man, thanks for trying. In fact, what happened was Simon started off as part of the same body of thinking, the same groupthink that everybody had after, the World War II era, mid 20th century in the United States. And he, in fact, started work. His first career was at the, I think, the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau. That's right. And so he, his job, and he actually joined the Census Bureau because of his deep-seated belief that something had to be done to stop population growth and to curb, population growth. And then, what has anybody read enough to be able to discuss his aha moment? You all have those aha moments? Thank goodness for those aha moments. He had an aha moment. He had an epiphany, all right? You know what an epiphany is, right? That's when the orchestra's getting ready to go and doesn't make any sense, but it sounds cool. An epiphany. And that epiphany was and both these guys are Jewish, by the way, all right? They both grew up in around Union City, New Jersey, just just east of New York City, west of New York City. And they came from similar backgrounds, okay? But it was Simon who was thinking about all of the lives lost during World War II. You know, lives lost in combat, to famine, to disease, to bombing, to the Holocaust. All of those people, how many people died during World War II? What was the mortality? Well, there were six and a half million people killed in the death camps by the Nazis.
Are you counting the Russians too?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, everybody.
Russians alone.
27 million Russians alone. Yeah.
500,000 U.S.
Yeah.
coalition forces.
Yeah. Half a million Americans, I know that. It's, Germans, who knows, millions, I guess, in combat. So anyway, you've got all of this incredible potential talent wasted, okay, by war. And so Julian Simon, thought about all this. He goes, how many Einsteins were there lost in that tragedy? How many people who may have discovered a cure for whatever, for cancer or some type of cancer or Alzheimer's or something like that. We wasted all of that talent. That's where Simon's coming from. So his epiphany was, look, if you look at history, things have just gotten pretty much better throughout time. Technology increases. Things tend to get better. People can tell you, well, you're relatively richer now than your great-grandparents were. Okay, well, we don't really think about that too much because we didn't live in that period of time, right? We have indoor plumbing, we have electricity, we have supermarkets, we have all these great things, and they could have never even known these things. We take them generally for granted. So that's Simon's approach, and Ehrlich's approach is the old Malthusian approach, where it's based on theory, not on the past and the data. Okay, it's based on the idea. It's based on an abstraction. So if Malthus was making this argument about population, let me just kind of show this part to you. The Malthusians and the Neo-Malthusians today, they say that Malthusian theory, Malthusian theory just states that you've got two rates of growth. You have, over time, you have the rate of food production, which is a linear relationship, or what he called an arithmetic relationship. And then we have human population growth, which is, of course, an exponential or curvilinear or logarithmic relationship. So that there's a problem. Population shall always outstrip the ability to produce food. What's wrong with that graph? What's wrong with that presumption or that assumption that Malthus made? Well, Malthus identified the problem as this, right? Population overshoots the ability to produce food. We might call that population overpopulation, or population passing the carrying capacity. Remember that one?
Yeah.
So the population overshoots the carrying capacity of whatever, of the land. What is wrong with that? Is it true? Is it not true? Come on.
Take into consideration of technology changes and advances.
So how would that affect the graph?
It would move the K line up.
So this line would not necessarily be a constant. Okay, it has fits and starts, right? I got to be careful when I say fits and starts for some reason. I want to say something else, but I don't. Fits and starts. So fits and starts. In other words, you got these technological technological advances. Often the technological advances come from war. Okay, strangely enough. So. And from the focusing of information on the.
What's up, guys? What's up? Want to share it with everybody?
Hey, wait. Hey, what's going on here? I'm not cognizant of this.
They're still talking. It's a huge distraction.
Well, you all have something to point out?
Oh, they're just talking about population.
Talking about this.
Okay, all right. Well, I didn't hear them, so we have a need to have some silence in the classroom, okay, for very important health reasons. I'd appreciate it. I'd appreciate it if we could maybe not rumble notes and that sort of thing, okay? At least during class, during when I'm trying to explain some things. So anyway, we have an issue with this graph. We know that technology has bumped up the actual production of food over time. We also know that the curve of population has changed, right? So this line has also changed. People are not just totally out of control, okay? In fact, population or fertility goes up and down. So this is a problem. Now, the neo-Malthusians, if you can see that, seek population control in developing countries. And there are a number of ways of doing that. There are arguments, or there are a number of reasons. They argue that environmental costs are way too much to allow human beings, or human populations to grow so much. They make economic arguments that there is not enough wealth to be made. Social reasons. They argue that the earth has a finite ability to support life, and it's pessimistic. So a finite, that's the key. That Malthus differs from Simon and others in the idea that everything is finite. Okay. Now, what if you go back to the Julian Simon, Paul Ehrlich debate, the wager? What did Simon wager? He wagered that the price of copper or any other strategic metal, okay, would fall over time. Why? Not because demand is decreasing, but actually because demand was increasing, all right? And because demand increases, supply increases. Do we have more oil today than we did 20 years ago in the United States?
Yes.
Well, in a way we do. In a way we really don't. It's always been there. We just haven't known about it. We're now counting it as reserves. In the past, we didn't. It's sort of like uranium in Wyoming. If the Crow Indians were walking around, do they consider that uranium in the ground to be a resource? No. Okay, it's not a resource to them. So it's all a matter of perception. So the idea of a finite resource base is the problem. Okay, and so what Simon and the optimists say is that the whole idea of a natural resource is a human precept. It's a human concept. It's what the sociologists call a social construction. Natural resources are merely social constructions. Okay, and we give them prices to measure their scarcity, to measure how much they're actually in need. So that's the pessimist view. Here's the theory. You already told me. Thanks you had to leave early. Yeah. Job interview. All right. Okay. The approach or of course, the interpretation that Malthus had was that once you cross the threshold of carrying capacity, you have these so-called positive checks. Positive checks is kind of a strange term. It sounds pretty negative to me, but basically you have famine, warfare, disease, population loss, pushes the population back down and back like this. It's sort of like the Kaibab deer population back in the 1930s and 40s. Is that when they did that over near the Grand Canyon? You know what I'm talking about?
I'm unfamiliar.
Well, okay, the Grand Canyon, I think it was Grand Canyon National Park. I think it was the BLM or one of the federal agencies, in order to protect the deer population. This special, I guess are they whitetails? I think they're like a subspecies of whitetail.
Like coos deer or cows deer.
Are they mules? Are muleys or you're like?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
What?
I think it's coos deer.
Coos?
Cows, I mean.
Technically a whitetail, but it's just.
It's technically a whitetail, yeah, okay. They're pretty small though, I guess, huh? Yeah. So anyway, the whitetail population was perceived by the government agencies to be under threat. So what do? They hired a bunch of hunters to go kill all the mountain lions. And they wiped out the mountain lions in the Grand Canyon National Park or wherever this was. And what happened to the deer population?
Exploded.
It exploded. It exploded, and then you have this massive die-out. So it was awful, and because the predators were keeping the prey population healthy, okay? And suddenly, anyway, so that's kind of what, Ehrlich interprets everything happening. And it's a biologist's approach generally of, this is what happens when you have, but the thing about, kaibab deer or whatever animal species, they don't innovate. They don't have nuclear physics, okay? They don't have culture. Culture changes the equation, right? So, yeah, when resources get scarcer and scarcer, innovation happens. All the poor biological species other than humans have is evolution. Yeah, they can evolve, hopefully. The polar bears will hopefully evolve once they're not able to hunt seals, right? What do you think's going to happen to them? You'll probably merge with the grizzly bear population. Will probably be a new, who knows? Or they might just be hanging around dumps in Canada all the time. I don't know. So they'll adjust. They'll adjust, probably, okay? Saw a video not too long ago of a polar bear killing a whale. It was like a beluga whale.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
That was impressive. I'm not too worried about the polar bears now. So, just kidding. Okay, so the cornucopians argue that carrying capacity is hogwash. Can you read that? Probably not. Carrying capacity, that whole idea of carrying capacity does not work for human beings. It may work for kaibab deer. It may work for bunny rabbits, okay? But it's not going to be relevant to human beings. Human beings don't get their food directly from their local environment, right? So the idea is that human ingenuity grows at an exponential rate. Yeah, but the more people, the more innovation, the more technology. Perhaps it's the case that we need more people in order to figure out a way to get to the next planet, right? How many light years away? 3 light years or something like that. To the next big habitable Earth. You've heard about that one? Right?
I've heard about where,
All over the news, right?
heard about where they're trying to move like industry up into space.
Yeah. I mean, it may be that conservation, I hate to say it, maybe that conservation is actually holding us back, slowing us down, keeping us from being innovative, all right? Because we want to be safe all the time. It's kind of like the helicopter parent, and the what do they call you guys? This generation, what do they call them? Generation Z, or the awful term is snowflake, right? The snowflake generation or something. So you've always had your fights taken up. Mom and dad have always swept the way out for you, and so now you're in the real world and you don't know what to do, okay? Because you've never been put under enough stress, okay? That's just a theory, I'm not saying that's the truth. But I used to have to walk 6 miles uphill in the snow to school, all right? Both ways, right. That goes. It's one of my favorite human beings on the planet, this guy by the name of John Mills, who I've known forever. My mom's known him forever. And he was my vice principal in middle school. The sweetest man you'll ever meet. Nice Christian man. And Southern Baptist, by the way. And I love John. You know how I met John? I was jacking around on the bus one day, and I got in trouble. Did that a lot. Got sent to the principal's office as soon as I got to school. Sent me over to Mr. Mills. Mr. Mills said, well, Brad, you get 3 licks. 3 licks. Did they give you licks in school?
They did at my
They
job.
did at your school? Good for you. So anyway, they had a big old paddle, okay? And it's like, all right. And it's like Mr. Mills, pop, 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 okay? And what'd that do? That got my attention, right? Got my attention a little bit. But what really scared the crap out of me was they called my parents. I could handle paddling at school, that's no big deal. But they called my parents. So what'd that mean? When I got home, I got the belt, okay? The belt was waiting for Brad, okay, on the bed. So yeah, I got home and I got my rear end given a nice little memory lesson, okay? So you don't mess around on the bus. Of course, I probably went and did it again anyway. So that's a lesson, right? Anyway, that idea is something that you can still debate. You know, it's not anything that we need to worry too much about. I want you to know the debate. I want you to be able to discuss it in kind of an intelligent way. Let's talk a little bit about the population pyramids that I discussed at one time. This is a much lower quality graphic, but see it there. Population composition and change according to population pyramids. You can ignore this. So what does this population pyramid allow us to do? It allows us to visualize the age and sex structure of a population. And if you know the age and sex structure of a population, you have an idea of its growth rate and therefore its future trends. Okay, so here are some, I don't know if you can see the statistics, but some idealized growth scenarios. So-called explosive growth is over 2.0% per year. So 2% doesn't sound like a lot, but you're adding 2% of the population to the population every year, and it's compound interest. Okay, I mean, what would we do now if we had an interest rate of 2%? That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? There's no interest rate. Not very much, at least. Slow growth is anywhere from about 0.5% to something like that. Not necessarily over 2. It's more like 3 and 2.5, 3 over for explosive. Zero growth is just stasis. That means that the population growth rate is just hanging around 0%. Maybe it dives a little below 0. Maybe it goes a little above 0 in good times, bad times. What happens to population growth rate during crisis, during war or depression? Well, at least that's what we used to think. If you look at the population pyramids of, say, the United States and maybe Great Britain during the 1930s and 40s and 50s, you'll see really reduced fertility, sort of a deficit during the war years. Why is that? It's not because of mortality. Mortality doesn't have much of an effect at all, really, on the population.
Is it because all the men were gone?
Yeah, it's because there's a separation of families, and because also during crisis times, it's not you're probably not intending to have any children. So being careful not to have children, but it is largely a matter of separation of families. But then, of course, they join together after the war in the peacetime, and you have a population. You have the, what do we call it? The baby boom, right? The baby boom. The baby boom happens, after this crisis period. So anyway, I talked a little bit about this. The vertical axis of these two histograms, these two graphs, indicate the different age cohorts, usually like 0 to 4, 5 to 9 years, 10 to 14 years. As you go up in age, the proportion of the population changes all the time. Now, if we're looking at this graph on the right side, who are these people?
I assume females.
These are females because females right. Females always right. Okay? Remember that. Okay. On the left are the males. And notice here that once you get up into the older years, you notice that females begin to outlive the males. So females are outliving the males here. Okay? And that's the case everywhere in the world. Question? Okay. So let's look at some more, these are either examples of shapes of population pyramids, okay? Or they're, that hat that the Pope wears. Which one that is? Anyway, so what type of growth would you expect from a population that actually looks like a pyramid?
Fast.
Rapid growth, okay? Here we've got basically slow growth. Here we've got some changes, some baby booms, right, going on. This will probably be close to what the United States would witness. Here is what we've got a real problem here. Why?
Negative growth.
You got negative growth, and with negative growth, the baby boomer population survives older and older, and now, since these folks are, this is basically a top-heavy distribution, all right? It's top-heavy, meaning that these people are not what we call the economically contributor populations, okay? They're the dependent populations. And those older dependent populations added with the younger, there's not very many young people, but you've got, nearly half the population in a situation of dependency. So come up with a way for older folks to contribute economically to, to your country. And, that would solve a lot of issues, I think. And it's not that people don't have something to contribute. I think they really do. But there's a culture that just sort of focuses on the young, and on being youthful and stuff. Anyway, that's enough. I need to go today. So y'all continue on. Check out those lectures, and we'll discuss issues. Let's see all of the ones.
Part of the season where they realize they're in shape enough to actually start doing bigger workouts.
I was distracted too.
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce you. I'd like you to introduce yourselves
To
Elliot.
Elliot
Sits on the front row because he and he can't hear very well at all. So I unfortunately forgot about that during class. And then it just kind of struck me that you guys, you're working in the back. I was trying my best to ignore it. But it's really distracting to me when I hear mumbling. If the students hear you, so please try your best. Please try your best not to do that again. And I'd like all of you to introduce yourself to Elliot and shake hands, okay?
Yeah, well, first of all, if there's an issue like that, it's one thing for it to be an issue, talk about it. But I don't appreciate the lack of tactfulness that you have just making a scene in front of class like that. That really pissed me off. So,
Well,
well, I am too, and I have a hearing problem too. I mean, I got tinnitus. I fucking shot mortars my whole fucking career. So I got hearing loss as well. I don't appreciate the fact that you just fucking making a scene out of everybody. I would expect you from being in the Army would know that. So that just kind of set me off. And
you guys are both veterans.
I am, yeah.